I am Dumisani Lingamangali Ncube, commonly known as the radical entrepreneur. The radical entrepreneur for a simple reason. My approach to entrepreneurship is quite radical. Born and bred at a village, through my school days, I got involved in entrepreneurship. So entrepreneurship has really been part of my life. Beginning from selling pamphlets, running a kiosk, trading in goods, bringing in or importing clothes from Botswana and South Africa. That business grew to a point that by the time I was 20, I was running an IT company with two other friends. By the time I was 23, I was running a transport company. By the time I was 25, I had DLN Technologies, which is the company involved in the provision of smart card printers. And now when people lose ATM cards, as an example, they are replaced instantly because of this particular company. But interestingly, my most interesting project is the most recent one, which is DLN Entrepreneurship Institute, which is where my passion is, where we train people to become practical entrepreneurs. And by the way, it is the first of its kind in Africa. So in a nutshell, Dumisani is an entrepreneur who would wish many more Africans to become entrepreneurs. Some of the interesting achievements that I've had in my entrepreneurship journey, to begin with, is having a fully fledged transport company at 23. And I mean, you're talking of, owning 30-ton trucks at 23, and looking at the fact that I was coming from the village, very poor background. I think it was quite an achievement then. And also by 20, when I was running the IT company, which is, by the way, one of the services that we provide, which is a school management system. It is the most used school management system in the country. So having achieved that at that tender age is something that I look back to and say, okay, fine, I think that was interesting. And having appeared on different platforms, BBC and a couple of other media houses, has also been quite a step in the right direction, considering the fact that this is the person who was born in a village. And I've received a couple of awards, 2016 Evolis Performance Award, a number of others, and amongst them 2018 Zambian Entrepreneur of the Year. So these are some of the achievements that have made me feel that it is possible regardless of your background. Some of the difficulties that I've faced in building my businesses, the first one would be, you see, I encountered losses. 2010, 12th March 2010, I was robbed in South Africa, and I was robbed of all my capital. 2013, I lost all my investment in a farming project, which was a huge challenge to pick myself up. Then 24th August 2014, one of my trucks was involved in a tragic accident that actually led to the closure of my transport company. So I've had many challenges. So outside losses, some of the challenges that I've actually had to do with age. I started quite young, and our understanding in our African setup is that for one to be trusted and for one to be viewed as an entrepreneur, they should be, quite old. So because I started quite early, I faced a bit of challenges in convincing people to trust us and engage us in business. So age was one of the biggest challenges that I had. And in my own company, I remember at one time that I would actually pause out and say I'm a sales agent for my company, or because people don't believe that young people can do phenomenal things. So that was a huge challenge. Then the other challenge was, financial capital, and this seems to be a challenge across many other entrepreneurs. So access to finance was extremely difficult. So in building my empire, it was a bit slower because we had to grow organically. So if I was to look at the challenges, I think those are some of the challenges that I would say I have gone through. And of course, in addition to that, it is sometimes finding people or partners to work with extremely well. I've actually gone through betrayals, by some of the employees and some of the partners that I've actually that I've actually worked with. So these are the normal challenges that I believe many others would actually go through. So it hasn't been a smooth ride through. It has been a tough one, but very interesting and worth it. Amongst the business people that I look up to across Africa, one that seems to stand out for me is the Zimbabwean billionaire, Strive Masiyiwa. And it is for a simple reason. Looking through his entrepreneurship journey, I saw some serious levels of tenacity and determination, having built Econet and other business ventures that he's actually gotten into. And one of the things that are so interesting for me is the fact that, you see, he's actually gone through the journey of ups and downs, and some of the projects haven't, blossomed as they should have been. But he still continues and is still pushing. So I look up to him, and I look up to him as a mentor. Looking at the Zambian business landscape, I would say it is quite an interesting one. The interesting part with it is that it is a free market economy, which is a very powerful plus. So anyone can easily get into business and they can move out of business freely. And there are no market forces that actually predetermine on how you should work and how you should go about your business. So it is a free market economy. But if I looked at some of the challenges that are being faced by most entrepreneurs locally, currently our economy is not so stable. You see, our inflation is quite high, so prices are changing drastically and quite fast. And over and above that, there's a high volatility in terms of exchange rate, and it has actually been, our kwacha has actually been losing value at a very high rate against hard currencies like the US dollar. So now that has a serious effect on how you can run your businesses, because things keep changing on a daily basis. And over and above that, one of the things that I would feel need to seriously be looked at is on how we can protect the local small business people. The foreign direct investors, as they come in, I think it would be great if they came in with capital investments and forecast on those business ventures that the locals cannot do. I think it wouldn't be a very good thing, and it is not a very good thing for these foreign direct investors who come in and get to do the little small businesses that locals really depend on. If foreign direct investment is coming in, let it come in for capital investments that cannot be done by locals. So there is serious need to see how we can protect that small business person out there. I think if I was to describe the Zambian business environment, I would say so much more can be done. But truly, I would say it is a free market economy. Our culture generally has a direct impact on how we live our lives, on how we interact with others. And indeed, it has an impact on how we run our businesses. There is serious need to have a paradigm shift on how we culturally handle things. Let me bring this out. You see, in our culture, we believe that what is yours is for everyone else. So it's like what is mine is for everyone else. We believe in that, which is a very good thing, but that does not hold well when running a business, because a business is a totally different entity which has its own life. So our culture has had an effect on how certain companies get to grow. Because you would find one who is running a business, or because there's a family funeral, this uncle has this particular problem, and there is this other problem in the family, and there's this problem at church, and you need to sort it out. People have gotten to the businesses to see how they can then sort out those things. It is a cultural thing, so I would wish to see how we can change some of these things and see how we can separate ourselves from the businesses. And that indeed a cause for a change in our culture, and to see how we can help within our means and not beyond our means. So if I was to look at what Africa should do, the African governments should do to see us thrive and have an environment that makes it possible for our economies to grow, is to possibly look at how we can trade amongst ourselves. It might interest to note that, you see, Africa trades more with other continents than we trade amongst ourselves. So if you look at the total exports that Africa has, you realize that, of course, there's an increment. In 1995, it was 10% of the trade was accounted for as intra-trade, trade within Africa. It was 10%. Of course, now it has grown to about 17% intra-trade. But that is still a very small percentage here compared, because if you're looking at 17% intra-trade, like the trade that we have amongst ourselves, against the 69% that Europe has, what that does is, you see, if you're trading amongst yourselves, it has the potential of growing yourselves. You see, Africa has a population of over 1 billion now, and that is a huge market that these countries can take care of, that can take advantage of. And over and above that, the GDP of Africa is about $3 trillion, which is quite huge. But we are failing to tap into this huge reserve for ourselves for a very simple reason. We are working as individual countries. So there is need to forget about the sentimental attachments of our borders and see how we can work together as a people. You see, if we work together as a people with a GDP of $3 trillion, that would give us the negotiating power. We fail to negotiate because we have these small companies that have a GDP of $15 billion. Now the GDP of Zambia is $25 billion. So how do you negotiate on a table when your GDP is smaller than most companies out there, most multinational companies? So we are really disadvantaged as individual countries. So if you are disadvantaged as individual countries, then we are indeed disadvantaged as a continent. So there is need to see how these countries could come together and have some concessions as free trade areas, and see how we can strengthen bodies like SADC, COMESA, ECOWAS, and all these commercial bodies, to see how we can trade better amongst ourselves. I think if we headed in that direction, we would see an Africa that will arise. So I would really wish to see our current African business leaders mentor young entrepreneurs to prepare them to take over the landscape. You see, we should forget about being celebrated alone, and see how we can mentor others to take over the baton. The challenge that we sometimes have is that we do not prepare people to take over the races that we are running. And that is why even in family businesses, you find that when the owner dies, children fail to run the businesses. Everyone else fails to run their business because they kept all the information to themselves. They were not generous enough to share with others. We need to realize that we are mortal beings. We are going to die. As such, we need to prepare the next generation that will take up after us. So my words to the African leaders, business leaders, is to begin mentoring young people, preparing them to take over once we are old and we no longer have the energies. I think those would be my words to the African business leaders.